mentioned trying to get broadband in rural areas. One thing that came up recently in my neck of the woods is the city of Manassas was one of the cities to start experimenting with broadband over power lines in order to try to get broadband into some underserved areas. It ended up costing the municipality enough money that they had to lay off police officers or defer hiring of police officers in order to fund this. The effort took federal money, local money, and essentially was another example of how government, there's no end to the good things you can do with public money. And they've announced that they're discontinuing it now. So, when I see stuff about how we're going to sort of do infill and use public money to help support broadband penetration, it kind of makes me think that there's a potential downside because of the funds we're spending. We're also helping to preserve the existence of a tax that was initially imposed to pay for the Spanish-American War that we're still saddled with, even though we've given up all the Guantanamo Bay. So how do we protect ourselves with some of these bills that you're supporting? Make sure that it's fiscally responsible, especially in a tough economic.
Well, the dollars that are out there right now are through the stimulus bill. So I didn't vote in favor of the stimulus bill. I am in favor of doing things to help get internet technology started, but we need to make sure if we're going to be doing it in that aspect, we need to stand them up, pull the funding back, sunset funding, and say, hey, listen, we're going to get to that point, and then we're going to let the technology stand or fall on its own. So you can do some things, I think, on the technology side, but then you can also do some things on the access side. You've got to be very careful, though, about going in and fully funding these systems, because I think if you come in and say, listen, we're going to fully fund the capital cost of the system, then just as you've seen there in Manassas, if you're going down the wrong road on technology, then where do you go from there? There's been inherent problems with internet through power lines, and we all know now the better technology is microwaves. But microwaves still have their disadvantages because of trees, because of line of sight. Now there's newer, higher frequency microwaves that'll overcome some of that. So we've got to do things to encourage that groundbreaking technology to be applied, but also make sure that we don't do things that disrupt the model of how things will work, and that is we want to make sure that technology is scalable, that it's efficient, so that minus the subsidies it can stand on its own, and that we are only partially involved in the capital cost. I think if you get in, if you watched historically, if governments get in and fund the full capital cost of infrastructure, and what happens then is if that's your economic model, and we've seen it, you have problems operating the system just on operation and maintenance dollars. And let me tell you, operation and maintenance on fiber optic systems and microwave systems are a lot more expensive than what people have anticipated. So if you've got a model that says, hey, listen, if you pay for all the capital cost, then we'll have enough money for operation and maintenance, it creates some problems. I think you got to have a model where you say, listen, there's got to be some capital cost there, because if your model doesn't incorporate that, then it's not aggressive enough for it to survive in the long run to generate operation and maintenance dollars. So we've got to look very carefully about how those dollars are awarded. That's why I'll be interested to see the plan, the nationwide internet plan or broadband plan that comes out. You got to make sure you have compatibility of technologies. You got to make sure if you're putting money into areas, again, just as you've shown, you can't be putting it into technology that's proven to be a problem or that it ends up being a tremendous waste of money. So I think the key with this whole thing is what's going to be in that plan, how applicable is that plan, and then looking at how many of these dollars from the Stimulus Act actually go towards the construction. Is there any matching funds that are needed? I think you're going to have localities and providers be partners in this, not have the government be the sole funder, because if as we've seen in the past, if that's the case, you may have some successes, but you'll also have some failures.
Anyone else?
Congressman, thanks for being here today.
Sure.
What role is the new media playing with you and your staff and constituent relations and getting information from those folks that are in the district and communicating?
Well, it's had a tremendous effect. We have almost 3,000 followers now on Twitter, so it allows us to go ahead and send information out. We get information back from folks on Twitter. The same on Facebook. We'll send information back. We get responses back on Facebook. So it's another opportunity for folks to link to the information that we're putting out there, and also encourage them to ask us questions, to ask more probing informational dialogues with them. So, I see it as a great opportunity, and using other aspects of it too, using more visual means. Twitter and Facebook are great static means just by typing to do that, but I see the next generation of using much more interactive means to use things like Quick and other media tools to get information out there and for it to be more interactive, more visual.
Do you guys have a process in the office to vet anything that comes through the new media channel inside your staff and your daily operations?
We do. I try to go ahead and directly communicate on Twitter. The things that come back in on Twitter and Facebook, we do monitor those, and I make sure that we get communications back to folks on that. So we are very active in making sure that we continue that dialogue. There's nothing worse than to use a new media source and have people try to use it back with you, and then you neglect it. It's the same with a website that stays static. If there's old information on the website, people go to it and go, nobody's keeping up with this, so they don't go back to it. So you want to make sure that these communication sources from your website to YouTube to Facebook to Twitter are those things that you're actively maintaining and engaging with folks in.
All right.
All right.
Well, Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate it.
What we'll go ahead and do now, you're welcome to stay with us for lunch. We've got plenty of Black's lunches, plenty of drinks. If y'all want to have a chance to meet with the Congressman,
Yes,
stick around
I'll
for
stick around
a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Outstanding.
We
All
can
right.
do that.
Take a little break.